Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name's Graham, and I am a librarian at the Michener Institute, and I'm really happy to be talking to you today about Zotero. So I'm going to share my screen with you. I usually prefer to share a window rather than a screen, but I'm going to be jumping between programs, so I think I'm going to have to do this. So in any case, I don't really have very many slides. I want to actually go through this sort of live for you. But the first thing I want to say is, again, if you have it installed, you're welcome to follow along, but don't feel that you have to. If you have questions at any point, feel free to pop those into the chat, and I'm happy to address your questions at any time. And there will also be lots of time at the end for questions. And also, just if if there's something that I've gone through too fast, let me know. I can happy to slow down or repeat myself if necessary. Yeah, so we'll keep the cameras and mics off for now, but we'll open them up at the end if you like. So in the meantime, just feel free to put your questions into the chat. So what I want to cover today is really an introduction to Zotero. So there's a lot of functionality in Zotero. There's a large team of people who contribute to this. So it's open source software, and there are people around the world who contribute code to Zotero, and it's been around for a long time, and it's I think a really great product. So we'll start. I'm going to show you just briefly how to download and install it. It's pretty straightforward. We'll talk about setting up a Zotero account, which is optional, but I recommend it. And then we'll talk about how do you get things into your Zotero library, and then how do you manage them once they're in your Zotero library. How do you set up a group so that you can collaborate? And this is a really great feature if you are doing any kind of collaborative work. Different people can sign in and have access to the same Zotero library. And then finally, how do you get your citations out of Zotero and into a document? So we'll talk about the options that we have there. So let's start with how do you get Zotero? So it sounds like some of you have already got it. That's great. If you want to install it and download it, again, this is free open source software. Anybody is welcome to download and install. You just want to go to zotero.org, and you'll see this big red download button. And now you'll see there are actually two parts to Zotero. There's the Zotero program, which you'll see on the left. It says Zotero 6 for Windows here. And so you'll download that as you would install any application. It is also available on Mac and on Linux. And then the other thing you want to do is install the browser extension. And so this is going to be really handy, and I'll show you. It just makes it really, really fast to add things into your Zotero library. So you can click, when you go here, it should detect which browser you're in. So I'm in Firefox, so it's telling me to install the Firefox connector. There are, of course, other browsers. So Firefox, Chrome, Edge, and Safari are all supported browsers. Again, you can use Zotero without a browser extension, but it really makes it easier to get stuff in, especially. So once you've installed those two pieces, the next thing you'll want to do is set up an account. Now, setting up an account is not required. if you download it, you can, everything, your Zotero library gets saved onto your computer. So all of the citations and also all of the PDFs that you've attached are all saved on your computer. Anybody can do that. You can download. There's no limit to how much you add when it's just on your own computer. But I would suggest signing up for an account. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, if you want to be in a Zotero group, you need to have an account for that. And then also, if you want to be able to sync your library across multiple machines, so maybe you're working on your work computer and you're also working on a home computer, it makes it really easy to do that and keep everything in sync if you have an account. So you just go to register in the top right here, and it's pretty straightforward. So first thing you have to do is choose a username, and you can call yourself whatever you like. And you'll see when you type it in, it will tell you whether that username is available. There we go. So it'll turn green if that's available. Enter your email, etc. Pretty straightforward. And then once you have your account set up, you can log in. And now we can see, first of all, web library. So you can actually access your Zotero library from the web interface, which is great if you're ever on a computer that doesn't have Zotero installed and you want to just quickly look at your stuff. You can find it there. You can get into your groups and all that kind of stuff. So there is, once you start syncing all of your stuff to the cloud, which I recommend, there is a limit to how much you can store for free. So for free, you can have up to 300 megs. And that may not sound like a lot, but it's really just the PDF. So the citations themselves don't take up any space. It's just the PDF attachments. So depending on your needs, that may be enough. If it's not, there are options. If you need 2 gigs, you're going to pay $20 US per year, etc. So just be aware of that if you have a lot of files with a lot of attachments. But that's basically how that works. So then the next thing you'll want to do is, so I'm going to open Zotero here. So this is what Zotero looks like, and here's so on the left, we're going to talk about this more. I've got my library organized with some collections, and then in the middle pane, this is all of the items that are in that collection. If I click on one of them, it shows me on the right all of the information, everything I would need to cite that article. It's not in any particular style yet. We'll get to that later. So this is what it looks like. What I would suggest is once you have set up your account, come to the Zotero program and go into the preferences. So this is, on Windows at least, this is under Edit, and you go to Preferences. And then if you go to the Sync tab, this is where you can log in with you'll see a field for your username and password here. And just click OK. And then once you've done that, it should keep you in sync with any other computers that are logged into your same account. Periodically it should sync. If you want to force it to sync, there's this green sort of circular arrow in the top right, and if you click on that, that's going to sync it. So if you've deleted something here, it'll delete it everywhere else, and if something has been added elsewhere, it'll pull it into your library here. So let's talk about how we can get things into our library. So what I find is the easiest way to do it First of all, obviously you're going to be doing a better search than this, but just for sort of a quick example, let's say, sorry, you know, let's say we've done this search and we come across an article, and we say, hey, this looks like an interesting article. This is something that I want to come back to later. What I can do is, you'll see up in the top right corner beside your address bar, this is the Zotero icon, and it actually changes. The icon changes depending on what kind of page you're on. So this should work in just about any database. It also works in Amazon.com, on the Toronto Star, wherever you are. And so if I click this button, it's going to save this article into my Zotero library. So I created a collection for this, and so here it is in the middle here. And again, I've got all the information that I need right here. And a nifty thing that it does is it tries to download the PDF full text if it can. And so what happens is, so I've told it I want this article. It says, okay, let's see if we can find the full text. Here it is. So if I want to open that article, it opens actually within Zotero. It just creates a new little tab here, which is handy. And then here's, I can read the whole article here. One thing that I personally find annoying is when it gives you a document, a PDF, and it just gives you a title like full text. Fortunately, this is really easy to fix. If you right-click on the PDF, you can go rename file from parent metadata. And what it's going to do is, well, it does what it sounds like. It's going to take the information about the article and use that to rename the PDF. So when I click that, now you can see we've got author's name, year, title. So that's a lot more meaningful. And we can just click this to hide that there. So that's how that works. Sometimes, and I'm in PubMed now. Sometimes in PubMed, it's not always successful in grabbing the PDF. And the reason is Zotero is very good at grabbing the PDF if there's a link directly from the page that you're on. And PubMed doesn't actually have any full text links directly in it. You always have to click somewhere that will take you out of PubMed to get to the full text. And sometimes that's PubMed Central, which is part of PubMed, but it's a special place just for open access articles. So from here, so that's just to say, if you click that save from PubMed and it doesn't automatically capture the PDF, just click through to PubMed Central or whichever page, maybe it's the journal publishers page, which has the direct link, and you can see this link right here. We know that if we save from here, it should be able to save that directly into our Zotero library. So we can also, if we wanted to save a bunch of things at once, you can see I told you this icon changes. So now it sees that we're on the results page. So it says, it changes it to a folder icon. And when we click that folder icon, it gives us the option to save multiple articles here. So let's say I want, that one and that one and that one. So you'll see it lists however many articles are on that first page of search results. So if I click OK, then it's going to save all of those into Zotero. So now you can see we've got more articles in here. And if we look at that, it was successful in grabbing the full text for each of those, which is great. It doesn't happen 100% of the time, but it's pretty good. So that's an option if you want to grab a bunch at once. If you've done a search and you want to import all the results of your search into Zotero, what you'll want to do is click this button that says Send To. We click Send To and select Citation Manager. And from there, we can select all results and go Create File. And then that's going to download a file that has all of the search results that you found. And then you can import that file into Zotero. I'm not going to do that because this is a fairly big file, but I'll show you how it works. From Zotero, you just go File, Import, and then you'd say, I want to import a file because you exported it from PubMed as a file. And then you would just find it and say, okay, here it is, and you'd import it, and it would create a new collection with all of those citations in it.
Graham, we just have one question.
Sure.
So the question is related to, can we rename from the metadata? Can you do this in bulk, or can you make that a default?
That's a good question. I would like to have that as a default because it's sort of, as I said, I find it sort of annoying when it's not done. You know what? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if someone has written some kind of a function to do that, but I could I'd be happy to look into that. I should also mention that the Zotero forums are very active, and there's a lot of people who go through the forums and answer people's questions. So I have had Zotero questions, how do I do this? Is it possible to do that? And if you just create a new question in the forums, people have gotten back to me really fast. So that's feel free to shoot your questions my way. I'm happy to take them. But just so you know, the Zotero forums are also a really good place to ask questions. Okay, so that's sort of, those are some of the basic ways to get things into your Zotero library. I'll show you, I'll show you in CINAHL as well. This, oh dear. And this may look slightly different to you if you're logging in from UHN. But here we go. I mean, it's really pretty much exactly the same as in PubMed. So if we, so again, from here, you can see we get the folder icon, and it gives us the option to save multiple records. If we want to save one of these individually, you can click that folder icon or that file icon, and it's going to save that into Zotero. And I should point out that if you have multiple collections, whichever one is currently highlighted, when you click Save to Zotero, it'll save it straight into that collection for you. So we can do that. The other thing you can do in CINAHL is if you want to export multiple things, what you can do is save them into a folder, and then I don't have any folders, so I can't demo that for you, but you can export from the folder. I'll show you. So you go to the export option, and then the best thing to do is just, this should be the default, direct export in RIS format. You'll see Zotero specifically mentioned there. You can save it, and then that'll save it as a file on your computer, and like I showed you before, you can import that into Zotero. So yeah, it's pretty much the same with most databases. There are other ways to get things in, of course. If you know if you have a DOI or a PMID, you can just enter those in here, and that will add the item. If you need to add something from scratch, it's not really that hard to do. If you go to this green plus symbol, you just have to select what type of document it is, and there's lots of different types, and the only difference is that it will give you different fields to fill in. So let's say we want to see, okay, the most common ones are at the top here. So let's say, you want to add a journal article, then you just type in the title, author, and you can enter as many or as few of these fields as you like, as you have available. And you don't have to do them all. Just keep in mind when you're citing later, try to keep in mind if you're using APA style, you'll want to think about all the fields that are required for an APA style citation. Now, another thing that may happen is you may find that you have you have a bunch of PDFs sort of just saved in a folder somewhere. I feel like this is something that happens to a lot of us. A lot of them have sort of very strange names, like you can see these ones right here. What you can do is you can actually just drag these, select them all, drag them into Zotero. Again, make sure you've got your collection highlighted if that's something you want to do. And when we drag those into Zotero, it will add them to your library, but it will also take a look at the article and see if it can create a record for you based on the text of that PDF. So I've just put in 5 articles and it found them all, which is great. It doesn't work 100% of the time. The big thing is with PDFs of articles, sometimes the PDFs, especially for newer articles, are sort of born digital PDFs, and those work really, really well. But sometimes, especially for older ones, the PDF is a scan of a print copy, and Zotero is not quite as good at reading those. So you may find that some of them don't work, and if that happens, then rather than seeing a record like this, you would see just the PDF, and then from there you would have the choice of either entering everything yourself, or again, maybe it has a DOI listed. You can enter that here. You've got different options there, but those are sort of the main ways that you can get things into your Zotero library. So I mentioned collections. So collections are like folders, except that you can have the same item can be in more than one collection, or it might not be in any collection. So it's a little bit more like a playlist than a folder, but they use a folder icon for it. So, and that's pretty straightforward. So when you click My Library, that's always going to show you everything in your Zotero library, including things that are in collections and including things that are not in collections. And you can sort this however you like. There's different fields that you can add here too. So if you wanted to see the date field instead of just the year, not every item will have something, but some of them will. So you can customize that however you like. And then if you want to put something into a collection, you can just drag and drop. It's pretty straightforward. And that's once you've been working in Zotero for a while, it's pretty important to be sort of separating your stuff out so you don't get confused about what's for what. And then for each of your items, another way you can organize is using tags. And so when you add items to Zotero, it will automatically give it some tags. So I didn't type any of these in. It pulls it from the record when you're importing it. So like, especially if there's keywords or something attached to it. And then if you wanted to, if you wanted to find all of the articles that have, the critical care tag, we can find that here. And so if you want to add tags, you can just, type them in. If you want to add a note, you can add it here. Just add a note, and then once you've done that, it will show up in this. When you open it like that, you'll see it right here. So that's another way to sort of keep things organized in there. The other thing you can do is you can also annotate your PDFs. So if you open a PDF and you're reading through and there's some part that's particularly important, we can use a highlighter and highlight it like that. If you want to make a note, we can say, again, whatever, because sometimes you highlight something and you come back, weeks or months later and you say, why did I think that was important? So you can, and we can put this wherever we want, and just click on it to read the note. And if there's a whole section that you want to sort of point to, or especially if it's something that's not text, like a diagram or something, you can go like that to, that's just another way to highlight, and you can even change the color if you like. I find yellow works for me. In any case, then you can go ahead and close that, and the next time you open it, all of your highlights and notes and things will still be there.
Graham, just a couple of questions for you.
Sure, yeah.
So Richard asked something about the accuracy of citations when importing. So how often does the import not correctly list the citations? He finds that this can be a problem with EndNote fields. I think you briefly did touch upon that.
Yeah, there's definitely, anytime you import something, there are going to be small errors. I would guess, I don't know this for sure, but I would assume that the error rate for Zotero is very similar to the error rate for EndNote, because most of the time those errors are actually caused by errors in the original record. So it's an issue of garbage in, garbage out. So I would say, I do always tell people you should double check the records and make sure they're right. But I would say it's probably about the same as EndNote.
Okay, the next question is from Deborah. When I use the Zotero connector, can I choose a specific collection to save the item to?
Yes, I believe you can. Let's see. Can you? Hold on. Yeah. So if you click it, if you just click once and then sort of wait, it will automatically save it to whichever collection you currently have highlighted in Zotero. And that's usually the way I do it, because I'm finding things and I want them all to go into that same collection. But if you wanted it to go into a different collection, just you click once, and before it disappears, you click here where it says saving to, and then you can select from any of your collections and you can save it into that collection.
Okay, and one more question. Are the folders or collections smart? So can we tell them to automatically pull in articles based on keywords rather than pushing the articles to the folder?
That's a very good question. I've never tried to do that before, so that's not a feature that I'm aware of. But again, it's a big program and there's a lot of stuff in there, so Yeah, I'm afraid I don't know about that. Okay, that's all the questions for now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was deduplication. So of course, once you've been importing lots and lots of records, you're going to end up with duplicates. So when you go to under My Library, there's an option that says Duplicate Items, and this will show you everything that it has detected as a duplicate. And sometimes, so if you click on one of these items, it will highlight all the ones that are duplicates. And in this case, it looks like we've got two that are absolutely identical. So it just gives us this option on the right here that says merge two items. So if I click that, it's going to just reduce that to one item. Now you can see for this one, we've got two that look like they are the same item, but the records that we've got are slightly different. You can see already different capitalization in the title, but then we can also on the right, we can swap between the two, and you can see this first one has some more details in the record than the second one. So what you want to do is choose the one that you want. So I want this one with the more details, and then click merge, and it will use that as sort of the main record, so that you're not losing any of the details there. So you can go through and do that for all of these. There is not, as far as I'm aware, a way of doing this automatically. So my understanding is that if you have a large number of duplicates, EndNote is from what I've been told, EndNote is better at managing it if you have a large number of duplicates. If you just have a handful, it's pretty quick to just click through, merge these. But if you have a large number, you may want to look at another option for deduplication. Okay, so another thing, so we were talking about how when you're importing records, there's always going to be some errors, some things that don't go exactly correctly. So what we can do is, if you've imported something and you find that some of the information is incorrect, or maybe some of it just doesn't come through, it's really easy to edit any of these fields. So let's say this article doesn't have an issue number. There's a very good chance it just doesn't have an issue. But let's say we open the article and we say, oh, this is issue 5. We can say, okay, that's issue 5, and now that's part of the record. I'm going to undo that because I don't know if that's correct or not. But all of these fields, you can absolutely edit. It's really straightforward. If you find, let's say, it identified something as a journal article when it should really be thesis, let's say, you can change the item type. Now, when you do that, it's going to warn you because the fields are different. So it's going to give us the additional fields because it's a thesis, but it's also going to take out these fields that a thesis doesn't typically have. So just be aware of that if you are going to do that. So now I want to talk about groups in Zotero. And again, this is a really useful feature if you're working collaboratively on a project. So if we want to create a new group, what we'll do is go up here to where it says New Library, and then we select New Group. And when we select New Group, it is going to bounce us into the browser, because the groups are all managed from the browser. So if you're not already logged in, it'll prompt you to log in here. And so first thing, just like creating a username, it's going to ask us for for a group name. And again, it'll tell us whether this name's taken or not. I'll let you know right now that the UHN is not taken as a group name, so feel free to jump on that when you have a minute. There are 3 types of groups that you can have. You can see these 3 options here: public open membership, public closed membership, and private membership. So they have little descriptions. So public open membership means anybody in the world can search the groups and find your group, and they can join your group. And this, so this is not one that I would usually recommend unless you are working on some particularly open project. The next option is public closed membership, where people can find your group, and they can see what you've got in your library, but they can't join the group. They can't make any changes to the group unless you invite them. And then finally, private membership is where nobody can see anything or even know that it exists unless they're invited to join. And I usually choose this middle option, public closed membership. And the reason is because sometimes there might be a case where you want to show your Zotero library to somebody who's not using Zotero. And if your library is set to private membership, then to see it, they will have to create a Zotero account, log in with their account, accept the invitation. With the public closed, you could send them the link to your library, and they'd be able to see all of the items that are in there. They wouldn't have access to the full text PDFs, and that's important for copyright reasons. So you don't need to worry that if you choose public closed membership, you are posting these PDFs to the world. You're not. It's only the people who are members of the group who would have access to them. And then, so once you've created your group, then you're going to invite people to join. That's really straightforward. Just enter their email addresses. They'll get a notification saying they've been invited to join. And then you'll see on the left side, each of your groups will show up here. And each, you can see by the icon that this is a library, just like your My Library at the top. And then within the group, you can have collections just like you would with your own library. So that's the groups. I definitely recommend setting those up if you're working with other people on any kind of project. So, all right, let's talk about the plugin for Microsoft Word. So the plugin works for Word, and it also works with LibreOffice. It does not work with Pages on the Mac. It does also work with Google Docs, and so it should be installed automatically when you install Zotero. Sometimes it doesn't get installed automatically. So I'm going to show you what you can do if it doesn't work. So if you go again to Preferences, you want to go to the Site tab and then select Word Processors. And you'll see this button says Reinstall Microsoft Word Add-in. So if you click that, it should try to think through it all again, and hopefully that will make it show up in Word. So what it will look like if you're successful is you should see a tab across the top. Oh wait, I can't click it because I have a, hold on, can I? Oh dear, I have a Teams, my little Teams thing is right here, and I can't, here, hold on. I'm gonna have to do this, sorry. Okay. Oop. Thank you, Windows. Okay, so here what you should see is this Zotero tab at the top. It might look a little bit different if you're on a Mac, but somewhere you should have a tab that says Zotero. And again, if you see at the top, like not the very top, but sort of at the top of the document here, if you see a long bar that goes across the top and it says anything about enable macros or make this a trusted document, you should click the button to say yes to that, because sometimes it does get hidden. But anyway, once you've got it up and running, you can start writing your paper. When you get to a point where you want to insert a citation, you click the button that says add/edit citation. And the first time for the document, it's going to ask you what style you want. And so it gives you a list of the most popular styles here. If you don't see the style you want to use listed here, don't worry. There are literally thousands of styles that you can use with Zotero. You can click Manage Styles here. But again, the most popular ones are going to be right here. These other options you can probably just leave. I'm going to select APA Style, 7th edition. And now we get this search box. And so this search box is going to search through your Zotero library. And as you start typing, it's going to match it with items from your Zotero library. And you can search by title, you can search by author's name, and then when you find one that the right one, you can click on it. And when we hit enter, it's going to give us our in-text citation here. And let's say, we want to add another one here. Again, we do our search. We find an article that we want to include. There we go. And maybe another one. Here. Okay. And so it's going to insert those in-text citations in the correct style. And then when we're ready at any point, just make sure you put your cursor down near the end and we can click add/edit bibliography. And this is, I think of the whole presentation, this is the really cool part. This is the exciting part, is when it gives you your citations correctly formatted in APA style. So it's alphabetical by first author's last name. And as you continue adding more citations in text, it will automatically pop those into your references list at the end, and it will make sure that it's in the right spot. Now, I always remind people, you really should go through and make sure that everything is correct in the citations. And as I mentioned before, most of the time, if there's a problem, it's because there was an issue with the record. So let's say there was somebody's let's say the author's name was spelled wrong. So let's say this says Healy, and I said, oh, you know what? I don't think that author's name is really Healy. I can go in here and find it. Oops, hold on. And here we go. And I can say, oh yeah, that's not Healy. That's Healy with 2 L's. And so what I do is I'll update that here. I'm going to sync it. And then in here, I'm going to just go refresh. And you'll see now it's updated in the in-text citation, and it's also updated in the full reference at the end. So that's pretty straightforward. Now, if you have, let's say you've got your paper, you've put all your citations in, you've checked your APA style, it's correct, and then somebody says, oh, by the way, we need this to be in a different style, maybe Vancouver style, which is a numbered style. If without Zotero, you would be pulling your hair out because that would be a huge task depending on how many citations you've got, to reformat the whole thing. In Zotero, it's really easy. We go to document preferences. You can choose whichever other style you want, and it's going to format it for you in this other style. And now we've got the numbers. It puts the numbers in the right order. That's really handy. So as you can imagine, what Zotero is doing is using some sort of code behind the scenes to make all of this look correct. So occasionally it'll happen that if you save this document and you send it to somebody who doesn't have Zotero, it's possible that they might see some sort of gibberish code in the document. Now, it may or may not happen. So if you send it, go ahead and send it to somebody. And if they say, oh, this looks funny, just come back. I would recommend save a version of the document with the Zotero code still intact, and then make a copy. And then you select this one that says Unlink citations. And then that will just take everything you see here and just put it into plain text. Like right now, we don't want it in plain text, because if if I add a citation, I want it to go into the correct order and all that kind of thing. But once I'm finished with the document, then I can go unlink citations, and it will remind you. It'll say, it's not going to be able to work its magic anymore once you've done this. But when you click OK, now this is just all plain text, and you know that whoever receives the document will be able to read it correctly. So another thing I wanted to show you is if you ever want to, sometimes you just want to create a bibliography and you don't want to have to go through all of sort of going into Word and having the plugin and all that kind of thing. Another thing you can do is you can just select however many articles you like. If you right click, you can go create bibliography from items. And when you click that, it'll ask you, of course, for your style. And then it'll ask you how you want to output it. I usually go copy to clipboard and click OK. And now if I open a new Word document and just go paste, it's going to give me my my APA formatted citation there. So that's a little bit faster if you're not concerned about matching up the in-text citations and that kind of thing. Okay. So that's what I wanted to cover. That is Zotero. I believe these are the fundamentals of Zotero. So thank you so much for joining, and I'm happy to take any questions that you might have now.
Yes, so I have a couple of questions in the chat. There are a couple of questions for the plugin for Word did not show up. It says that it's installed. Any suggestions for troubleshooting?
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing is the sort of the classic turn it off and turn it on again. Is I would recommend just restarting your whole computer, because sometimes that's what it takes. And then if that doesn't work, just let's see. Sometimes if you're on the same version that I'm on, it really should appear. In some versions of Word, there will be a button that says, I forget now what it says, but it's like other options or something. You have to click. There's one more click before you find the Zotero. But yeah, the plugin issues are sort of the most common issue that come up. So I would suggest, reach out to, like, I'd be happy to try to sort of troubleshoot or if it looks like it might be any kind of an issue with like the UHN network, maybe contact the UHN library about that. But yeah, it's something that 90% of the time it works and it's really effortless. But there's a significant portion of the time when it doesn't work as well as we'd like.
Okay. The next question is, how do you manage citations for web pages, reports, and other non-journal items? Frequently, these do not display correctly. How do you know which fields to add data to?
Yeah, that's a good one. So when you absolutely can save to Zotero from any web page. This is, well, it's not really a good example of a web page, but let's say we wanted to save the Zotero.org website. We click here. It says it's a website, and here it is. But you can see all it saved was really the title and the URL and when we accessed it. So Zotero, and I think this is true of all citation managers, it really works best with journal articles, books, and sort of scholarly materials. It's not quite as seamless with web pages. So in any case, what I would do is I would look up the citation rules for whatever style I'm using, and then I would find out exactly what needs to be included. So does it need, you probably want an author, which may be a corporate author if there's no person named. Is it if it's a page within a website, do we need a publication date? Look at what you need for that style, and then just add those fields manually here, and that's really all you can do.
Okay, and we have an earlier question that I tried to answer. It was about comparing Zotero to Mendeley. What are the additional points that Zotero has?
That's a good question. I'm going to be honest. I have not. I have tested and compared them, but like 10 years ago. So I bet Zotero has new features. I'm sure Mendeley probably does as well. One thing that I like about Zotero is that it's open source software, which means it has this whole sort of community of people around the world contributing and answering questions in the forum and that kind of thing, whereas Mendeley is owned by Elsevier, so it's a more sort of corporate model. Yeah, I'm afraid I can't answer that. If you Google it, I bet there are libraries and other institutions that have done more recent comparisons.
Okay, and the next question is, what's the best way to share sources with people not on Zotero?
Yeah, so what I would suggest is having a group library with that open closed membership, and then so I'll show you like if I wanted to share, here we go. So like this one is a public closed membership. So if I wanted to share the this group library, if I share this URL, this should show up. So I'm going to open a private tab, so I'm not logged in. We should be able to still see it here. Yeah, so we can still see all the items, all that information. We're not going to have the full text PDFs, but I would say that's the best way to share it.
Okay, and the next question is, are you able to automatically remove the DOI links from the references list?
Oh, like where it's like if you want to take the hyperlink out.
Yes.
That would be, I'm pretty sure that's the thing that Word does. So you would have to see if there's some kind of a script or something you could run to automatically do that. I don't know off the top of my head, but it wouldn't be a Zotero thing. That would be a Word thing.
Okay, and Just letting everyone know that I have, you are able to unmute. So if you wanted to ask Graham any other questions, you can unmute if you wish, or you can still use the chat.
Okay, well, I'm going to just, yeah, if you have questions, keep them coming. I'm going to stop presenting just because I'd like to, I'm going to put my email address in the chat. So if you have any, if you have anything that you want to follow up with me about later, I'd be happy to do my best to give you a hand with it.
Graham, it's Jim Bowen here.
Hi.
I'm just wondering, how do you find this works actually within the Office 365 environment? Frequently when I'm working with EndNote, I actually have to bring things out into the non-light Word version and actually go out to the application. Can it actually work within the Office 365 light version of Word, or do you have to always launch the main application to get it to work properly?
Oh, that's a good question. So you mean like the browser-based version?
Yeah, because like when you're
Word?
working in Office, I usually find you have to move out to the actual Word program. It doesn't work within the Office 365 browser version, right?
Yeah, I you know what? That's a good question. I haven't tried it. I always use the full Word application because I don't really like the browser version as much. So I don't know. I would guess that you for that full functionality you would need to use you wouldn't be able to do it in the browser. But yeah, I mean just for when you want to make any changes or anything. I mean if you do your work in the full version and you save it and you open it later in the browser version, I would imagine that you should be able to read everything fine.
Yeah.
But my guess is that you would need the full Word.
Perfect. Great. Thanks a lot. Great presentation. Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay. Any last questions before we all sign off?